what's going on YouTube? Today we're talking about grinding jigs. For those of you that have watched some of my other videos, I'm a hobbyist knife maker, more of a wannabe hobbyist knife maker. Started making knives less than a year ago, and I've been exploring different knife jigs, different techniques for grinding to see what works for me. And from a lot of the knife makers I've talked to, that's kind of been the common theme is, hey, you just gotta kind of try everything until you find what works for you. So in an earlier video, I talked about this grinding jig that I had got off of Etsy from a guy named Alexander Kitov. He makes these, and this has served me really well. It's got some great features. You know, when you rotate this dial, it changes the angle. And basically you use screws to screw your knife blank down, and then you can go ahead and do passes at the set angle. My issue with this is that every time I need to do the other side of the blade, I have to unscrew it, flip it over, and it becomes a real pain in the butt. So I'm gonna keep this. This is great. It works really well for some things, but I wanted to explore other options. So one of my favorite knife makers, a guy out of the UK named Ben Orford, had recently got a knife grinding jig and had recommended it because of his kind of first impressions with it. So we picked one up. This is from Jerry Moen, who's a famous knife maker based out here in Texas. This is one of Jerry's jigs, and I'm going to open it up and give you a closer look, and we'll do kind of some initial thoughts. So I have opened this already, but I wanted to show you just how well Jerry packs these. Puts this nice foam in here, so it's very secure. I do live in Texas, so shipping time to me is a lot quicker because I'm not too far from him. So here's the jig initially. You can see this is roughly 13 inches long by 4 inches wide, and it stands up about a half an inch. I went with the option that gives me 2 standoffs, but I think it comes standard with one of the standoffs, and I'll show you how those work. There's also 9 dovetails that you can see across here, so this entire thing is customizable. So if you need to move where the blade is being held down a little bit, or you need to move the standoffs down, or you need to put 2 standoffs on one side, you can adjust this however you would like. One of the nice things about this particular jig is that if you look at the actual blade clamp itself, these are carbide right here, where you're going to be holding your blade, and where your belt would be running up against to create your plunge. So very strong. It's not going to get eaten up by your grinder. But to show you how it works, I've got a blank here. This is a larger knife, about 11 inches. We are going to set our blade into the clamp, and I'm not going to measure it out for the angles of my plunge just for the sake of this video. And then you just use an Allen wrench to tighten it down, like so. And once that's on there, you then attach it to the jig itself. Now, I use a Wixie or a digital angle reader, and what I like to do is I like to zero this to my platen. So I put it up against my platen and I hit the 0 button, and then I move it down to my jig so that I can actually set the appropriate angle. Now, my Wixie here is magnetic, but this is not steel right here, but the little screw I noticed is steel, so it does allow me to stick it on there and have it stick to the magnet. So once I've set my angle to wherever I need it to be, I tighten this down. I tighten this down inside the dovetail that I need it to be in. And now I can just put my blade with the clamp directly on it. So let me actually tilt this forward a little bit so you can see. Now here's where the standoffs come in. The thing I didn't like about my other jig was that once I clamped my blade in, and this is upside down, but once I clamped my blade in, I couldn't actually see the top of the blade because there was that wall. So now with this, I have my standoffs here. I place my standoff where I need it to be and I tighten it down. And I can grind and I have the support of that standoff. And I can still see my entire blade as I'm grinding. Let's take it over to the grinder so you can see what it looks like against the grinder. We're at the grinder now, so you can see how this would work against the grinder. I don't actually have a belt on here, but I wanted to just give you a visual of how this would work. So we've got our blade set in there, we've got it clamped down, we've got our standoff set. This standoff's not doing anything because we don't have a need for it at this point, but when we turn our blade over, we'll actually use that one. So with our angle set and with a belt on here, now we could just do nice smooth passes on our work rest or our tool rest right across the sanding belt. And when we are ready to do the other side of the blade, I don't have to unscrew a bunch of things and take the blade off. All I have to do is loosen my standoff, loosen one screw up the top here, and then I'm just going to turn this around. Stick it back down in, tighten it up, and now we have that additional standoff on the other side. Place it against the blade, tighten it down, and we are ready to now grind on the other side. So overall, from a form and function perspective, I think this is an outstanding jig. The quality on it is just top notch, you can tell. And I really like how customizable it is. You know, I do blades that are really small up to some bigger blades, and to be able to customize basically the entire jig, if I need to move two standoffs, let's say, down to this end, then I have the ability to do that. If I need to move my entire blade holder down here, because I'm doing a sword or something, then I have the ability to do so. So everything about this is customizable. Now, the angle that you can set this from 0 degrees to plus or minus 22 degrees. So very versatile as far as the angles that you can actually use this to grind. I'm not entirely sure what these little slots are right here. I'll have to reach out to Jerry and ask him. But let's try it out. Let's get everything set up and let's try it out on the grinder and see how it does.
So like anything in knife making, whenever you're trying out a new jig or new belts or a new grinder attachment, it takes some time to get used to that specific product. And so I spent a good amount of time just playing with this jig and practicing on knife blanks that I didn't mind ruining if needed. But even on just the first attempt, I was getting much straighter bevels and much more even bevels than I had on anything else I had attempted. I like this jig a lot because I can see the blade, and it makes grinding actually enjoyable and takes out some of the guesswork.
All right, so for me, this jig has become a game changer for me. It's saved me a ton of steel, and you know, as a new knife maker, that's half the battle, is trying to figure out the grinds, and I end up wasting so much stuff because I'm just trying different methods. And so this jig allows me to actually be able to see my work and see what I'm doing with the blade fully exposed. And so I've tried flat grinds, I've tried Scandi grinds, I've tried saber grinds on it, and it just does a really good job of keeping things even and allowing you to see your work again, so you know how much pressure you're putting on it. Like anything, it does take a little bit of time to just kind of get used to the jig, but in my opinion, it's worth every penny. Now, that being said, it is a pricey jig. So these run about $500, and there's some different ways that you can configure them. But for me, that's worth the money because I want to be able to produce something that's consistent and also very clean looking. So There's no way to buy them right now. I spoke to Jerry and he's working on a website. But in the meantime, you can reach out to Jerry at jerry@moenworks.com, and I'll put a little banner down here with his email address. If you shoot him an email, he's a great guy. He can take care of you. So I really appreciate you watching. I strongly encourage you to go check out these jigs. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Click the subscribe button, click the like button, ask any questions down in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks again.